Beneath the Forbidden City in Beijing, archaeologists have been quietly excavating since 2020. They have uncovered layers of construction that predate the Ming dynasty by centuries. But there is a fascinating, though completely unverified, modern internet theory suggesting that during construction in the early 1400s, 12 ancient Mesopotamian clay tablets were sealed beneath the foundations. While mainstream history finds no evidence of this, exploring how such a connection could even be hypothesized reveals incredible real historical parallels between ancient Mesopotamia and imperial China. In 1849, British archaeologists working in the ruins of ancient Nineveh pulled broken clay fragments from the buried library of King Ashurbanipal. When scholars cracked the Akkadian cuneiform script, they discovered something remarkable. 7 clay tablets, known as the Enuma Elish, contain the Babylonian creation story. But creation comes late. The first 4 tablets focus almost entirely on warfare, strategy, and divine bloodshed. While parts of the story date back much earlier, the most famous complete surviving copies found in Ashurbanipal's library date to around the 7th century BCE. The temples of Babylon recited these words during New Year ceremonies. Priests chanted them before golden statues as sacred truth. Whatever the Enuma Elish describes, the people of ancient Mesopotamia treated it as the foundational story of existence itself. Within these tablets, a group of beings appears again and again, the Anunnaki. In Mesopotamian mythology, the Anunnaki are the gods of the earth and the underworld. Their number is sometimes listed as 50, though other texts suggest a much larger assembly. After the Great Cosmic War described in the Enuma Elish, the Anunnaki were assigned roles as cosmic administrators. They judged the living and the dead. They oversaw labour. They established the city of Babylon and built the temple Esagila for the supreme god Marduk. Much of what we know about the Anunnaki comes from cuneiform tablets discovered in the ruins of Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian and Babylonian cities still scattered across modern Iraq, Syria and Turkey. These are not obscure references hidden in single fragments. The Anunnaki appear across hundreds of tablets spanning thousands of years. Their role is consistent. They are the ruling council of divine beings who shaped the world and assigned humanity its purpose. The tablets themselves are physical objects you can see and touch. Cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems on Earth, was developed from pictographic symbols in the late 4th millennium before the Common Era. Scribes pressed wedge-shaped marks into wet clay using a cut reed stylus. When fired in a kiln or dried in the Mesopotamian sun, these tablets became nearly indestructible. They have survived floods, sieges, the collapse of empires, and the slow grinding of centuries. Tablets from ancient Ur and Babylon have been found scattered across the entire Near East, far from their cities of origin. They were compact enough to carry in one hand, they weighed less than a loaf of bread, and they travelled along every trade route the ancient world had to offer. This is where the story shifts east. The Silk Road, that vast network of overland trade routes connecting East Asia to the Mediterranean, stretched over 6,000 kilometres through mountain passes, desert basins and river valleys. It linked China, Central Asia, Persia, India and Mesopotamia in an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, technologies and religious beliefs. Camel caravans carried bales of silk and jars of spice west. But they also carried knowledge east, curative herbs, astronomical star charts, and religious texts moved along these dusty roads for millennia. During the Han Dynasty, Chinese envoys made contact with the Parthian Empire, opening up trade routes that allowed Mesopotamian and Persian goods to flow eastward, initiating cultural exchanges that shaped both civilizations for centuries. Physical objects made the journey too. Archaeologists have found pottery in northern China that shows Iraqi-inspired techniques dating back to the 6th century. Trade routes enabled direct contact between distant civilizations and the exchange of craft techniques, particularly through artisans who walked alongside the caravans. In 2022, an exhibition of 200 cultural relics from Syria opened in Beijing at the National Library of China. Artifacts spanning multiple eras, on loan from 9 Syrian museums, offered visitors a direct window into the Mesopotamian civilization. These objects had weathered wars, looting, and the passage of millennia to survive. If pottery techniques travelled the Silk Road intact, then clay tablets could have as well. Cuneiform tablets were among the most portable and most durable objects in the ancient world. They could not rot, they could not fade. They had survived buried in desert rubble for 2,000 years before British archaeologists found them. A scholar carrying a small collection of inscribed clay from Baghdad to Xi'an would have added almost no weight to a camel's burden. While it is physically possible for an object to travel that distance over decades, there is absolutely no archaeological evidence that Bronze or Iron Age cuneiform tablets were ever transported to Ming Dynasty China. The Silk Road was not a trade route for silk alone. It carried glass, spices, coins, religious texts, and ideas. There is no logical reason it would not have carried clay. Now the story arrives at the Red Walls of Beijing. In 1402, a man named Zhu Di seized the Chinese throne by force. He was the fourth son of the Yongle Emperor, the founder of the Ming Dynasty. In 1399, Zhu Di had launched a brutal civil war against his own nephew, the Jianwen Emperor. Soldiers fought across southern China for 3 years. Cities burned. When the dust settled, Zhu Di stood victorious and declared himself the Yongle Emperor. He was a usurper who had killed his way to power. He knew it, and every decision he made for the rest of his reign was designed to bury that truth beneath something grander. In 1406, Yongle ordered the construction of a new imperial palace in Beijing. The project consumed 14 years and more than 1 million workers. Labourers hauled massive stone slabs across frozen rivers in winter. Timber was transported from forests 1,000 kilometres to the south. The result was the Forbidden City, the largest palace complex ever built on Earth. It was not merely a seat of government. It was constructed as a replica of the Purple Palace in heaven, because the Emperor of China was believed to be the son of heaven, the divine link between the celestial order and the mortal world. Every wall, every courtyard, every carved stone dragon was placed according to cosmological principles. The palace contained secret passages, hidden rooms, and structural traps designed to stop intruders from ever reaching the inner chambers. Beneath the visible grandeur, entire networks of sealed spaces were built into the foundations and never reopened. What was sealed there, and why, is a question the palace has not yet been made to answer. Yongle was more than a builder. He was a collector of knowledge on a scale the world had rarely seen. He commissioned the Yongle Encyclopedia, an immense project intended to compile all known knowledge into one comprehensive text. The emperor employed around 2,000 scholars to complete the work. It surpassed all earlier encyclopedias in ambition and scope, but most of it is now lost. Only about 3.5% of the Yongle Encyclopedia survives today. Volumes were destroyed, scattered across provinces, or sealed in imperial archives. What knowledge those missing pages contained from foreign traditions, including Near Eastern mythology gathered by Silk Road scholars, is simply unknown. The loss is staggering. An emperor who deployed 2,000 minds to capture the sum of human knowledge, and 96% of what they produced is gone. And then there is what lies beneath the palace floors. In October 2020, archaeologists began formal excavations under sections of the Forbidden City. The Imperial Workshop site became the largest archaeological discovery within the complex. It displays the most diverse remnants from periods stretching back to the Yuan dynasty. The project has been progressing quietly. Away from the 14 million tourists who walk through the Forbidden City every year, researchers have uncovered artifacts that push the history of the site back centuries before the Ming era. But only a fraction of the underground layers has been examined. Yuan dynasty foundations remain untouched. Whatever Emperor Yongle's workers sealed into the bedrock in the early 1400s has not been reached. Consider the full profile of this emperor. A usurper desperate for cosmic legitimacy. A man who built a palace designed to mirror the architecture of heaven. A ruler who commissioned the largest encyclopedia in human history, deploying thousands of scholars to gather every fragment of knowledge available from every corner of his empire and beyond. A leader whose trade networks stretched along the Silk Road to the borders of ancient Mesopotamia. A man who sent Admiral Zheng He on 7 massive naval expeditions across the Indian Ocean, reaching the Persian Gulf, the coast of Africa, and ports that connected overland to the ancient Near East. If cuneiform tablets carrying Anunnaki mythology ever reached China through those channels, Yongle is the emperor who would have claimed them. and the Forbidden City as the structure where he would have sealed them beneath stone. The claim that has persisted in alternative history circles states that among artifacts collected by Yongle's Western agents were 12 clay tablets bearing cuneiform inscriptions consistent with Akkadian-era mythology. Specifically, the claim holds that these 12 tablets were sealed in a sub-foundation chamber during the 1406 to 1420 construction period, and that 2 of the 12 were transcribed by imperial court scholars before burial. No peer-reviewed journal has confirmed this specific claim. That must be stated directly and without ambiguity. But the underlying mechanics of the story, clay tablets surviving for millennia, objects travelling the Silk Road, Chinese emperors obsessively collecting foreign knowledge, are each independently documented historical facts. The extraordinary claim rests on an ordinary foundation. Dismiss the tablets themselves if you must. The infrastructure that would have carried them is real, and it was operating at full capacity during exactly the period in question. The first of the 2 allegedly transcribed tablets contains a creation narrative that mirrors the Enuma Elish, divine beings dividing into opposing factions, a war fought somewhere beyond the physical world, a defeated being whose body is torn apart to form the earth and the sky. This mythological structure is not unique to Mesopotamia. In Chinese mythology, the primordial giant Pangu separates heaven and earth at the dawn of creation. When Pangu finally dies, his body becomes the mountains, his breath becomes the wind, his blood fills the rivers and the oceans, his bones harden into minerals beneath the ground. The parallel is striking. A cosmic being destroyed, and from its physical remains, the entire world is constructed. 2 civilizations separated by the width of a continent, telling the same structural story. Neither borrowed it from the other in any timeline that conventional history can confirm. And yet both arrived at the same image, the world built from a body, the universe assembled from a death. And then there is Nua, the Chinese goddess who shapes humanity from Yellow River clay, moulding figures with her hands and breathing life into each one. In Mesopotamia, the Enuma Elish describes humanity fashioned from clay mixed with the blood of a defeated god named Kingu. 2 origin stories built on the same raw materials, clay and divine substance becoming human life. The question is whether this convergence is coincidence, independent invention, cultural diffusion along ancient trade routes, or evidence of a shared source tradition that predates both civilizations entirely. No answer that fits neatly inside conventional history has been offered. These striking similarities are classic examples of what anthropologists call independent invention, or shared human archetypes, where different cultures naturally use the earth around them, like river clay, to explain their origins. The second allegedly transcribed tablet describes something different from a creation story. Instead of origins, it contains a list of divine decrees, laws handed down by the Anunnaki governing agriculture, the movements of stars, and the sacred duties of kings. The core concept is that cosmic authority flows downward from divine beings to human rulers who govern only by permission from above. In China, this idea has its own ancient name, the Mandate of Heaven, the belief that divine authority is granted to emperors and can be revoked if they fail to govern with justice. This concept predates the Ming dynasty by thousands of years. It shaped every Chinese dynasty that ever rose to power or crumbled to dust. An emperor who lacked it was illegitimate. An emperor who lost it fell. Yongle, a man who had seized his throne by killing his nephew, needed that mandate more desperately than almost any ruler in Chinese history. The idea that he might have reached across the ancient world to find its oldest written source is not irrational. It is consistent with everything else he did. He built the largest palace on earth to demonstrate divine favour. Commissioning scholars to find its ancient precedent would have been entirely within his character. There is also the matter of impossible king lists. The Sumerian king list is a real cuneiform tablet housed today in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. It records the reigns of rulers stretching back before any written history. Some of these kings are listed as reigning for tens of thousands of years. The text states that kingship was lowered from heaven to earth, using exaggerated lifespans to symbolize the grandeur of their golden age. Similarly, China's legends of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors feature rulers who lived for centuries. While ancient chroniclers recorded these as historical lineages, modern historians view them as beautiful foundational myths meant to legitimize political power. Whether these parallels are the product of independent mythology, gradual cultural exchange, or something deeper is the question that sits at the heart of this entire investigation. The two tablets, whether they physically exist beneath Beijing or persist only as legend, describe themes that appear independently across multiple ancient civilizations on multiple continents across multiple millennia. The pattern is too consistent to be random and too widespread to be local. What it means is the one thing no sealed chamber, no unread tablet, and no unopened tomb has yet been willing to confirm. And this brings us to the final frustrating reality. The sealed spaces beneath the Forbidden City remain largely untouched. Excavations begun in 2020 have examined only the outermost layers. Ming-era foundation chambers sit deeper, beyond the reach of current work. And the Forbidden City is not the only sealed site in China demanding patience. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, built over 2,200 years ago near the city of Xi'an, has never been opened. In 2002, scientists detected abnormally high concentrations of mercury directly beneath the burial mound using advanced analysis techniques. This confirmed details recorded in ancient Chinese texts describing rivers of liquid mercury flowing through the tomb's interior. But the central chamber presents an enormous challenge. An entirely sealed environment created 22 centuries ago. China's state administration of cultural heritage follows a strict governing principle. Do not excavate unless you can fully preserve. Officials fear that exposing the interior to air, light and moisture could irreversibly destroy artifacts that have survived in darkness since the Qin dynasty. Two of the most significant sealed sites in human history sit on the same soil. Both remain closed. Both are waiting. The same caution governs work beneath the Forbidden City. Whatever rests in those sealed Ming-era chambers will remain there until technology advances far enough to open them without destroying what is inside. And until that day comes, the claim of 12 Anunnaki tablets stays suspended in the space between persistent legend and unrealized possibility. 14 million visitors walk through the Forbidden City every single year. They cross stone courtyards and pass through Vermilion gates built 600 years ago. They stand on floors laid above foundations that reach into layers no living person has ever examined. Somewhere beneath that ancient stone, if the claims hold any truth, 12 clay tablets sit in total silence, inscribed in a language that was already dead when the emperor who buried them was born. The cuneiform has been waiting for 6 centuries. The question is whether anyone will ever be allowed to read it.